Welcome to the third episode of the Matchii Experience. It is a biweekly podcast about the stories of the restaurant industry that comes out on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Music. Your hosts for today are Timur, Dylan, and Seb. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hi.
So our guest for today is Michel Falcon, who will be starting a fast casual Peruvian fusion restaurant called Brasa. We'll be talking about his motivations and passions for bringing Peruvian food to the masses and how his business model considers employees to be at the forefront of its success. I hope you guys enjoy the Matchii Experience. The first thing we will obviously ask is we want you to tell us about a bit yourself. You know, we want to know who you are and what your business is. So how did you get into the culinary industry as well?
My name is Michel Falcon. In 2016, I was in management consulting. Companies would hire me to better their company culture, their customer experience, and their employee engagement. And at the time, living in Vancouver, I was asked to move to Toronto for 3 months to work with a hospitality company here in Toronto. And I did, to help them with some of their culture and their customer facing strategies. And that was my first kind of foray into hospitality and culinary. I, like many others, I'd worked in restaurants in high school and in college, but this was the first time being strategic. And 3 months turned into 6 months, and then 6 months turned into, I don't think I'm moving back to Vancouver. I enjoyed Toronto. I enjoyed the industry. My partners and I became a partner of this hospitality company. And we had plans to open many other venues. But in 2018, things changed for me. My, definition of success was different than it was a couple of years prior to that. And in short, I wanted to do things that were scalable. I wanted to develop a concept or a business that could be enjoyed throughout North America, Europe, and other continents. And I wanted to build the company I'd always dreamed of building. And that ultimately led me to another opportunity.
Nice. So what's the plan? Do you kind of want to start the restaurant here and then kind of make a chain out of it, or?
Well, yeah, I got to describe what that is. I'm not going to assume anybody on the podcast knows what I'm talking about yet, at least. So the new concept, I went from full service restaurants to entering fast casual. Fast casual restaurants would be defined by a very limited seating. You're not served by a wait staff. Whereas full services, you go to a restaurant, you sit down for an hour or 2 hours. And I'm now going to fast casual, and the concept is called Brasa Peruvian Kitchen. I am leveraging Peruvian flavors and exports and building a chain of restaurants that will serve things that are recognizable, like salads and warm bowls, but with Peruvian flavors and Peruvian exports. And the plan is to start in Toronto, get to four to six stores in the GTA, and then immediately head to the US. Okay,
nice. So why the shift to the fast casual things? Why is that better than, the normal way?
It's not better. Like your definition of success, like everybody has a different definition of success. Yeah. For me, it's financially more affordable to get started. Like a store costs $350,000 to get started, not $2 million. And it's more, which allows it to be more scalable. Your footprint isn't as big. Our stores will be 600 to 900 square feet. Our flagship location in Toronto with the full service restaurant Baro is 16,000 square feet. So
Okay.
it's just a much different business. The
Hmm.
commonality is you are serving people food that they eat and digest. That's pretty much where it ends.
Okay.
Other than that, it's a much different industry. I like the challenge ahead of me. If you think about fast casual are like the Chipotle's of the world. That's fast casual. McDonald's would be referred to as quick service restaurants,
Okay.
also known as fast food is what they used to call it, or what we used to call it. Um, if you think about those industries, and my first job was at McDonald's, and I actually take offense to when people say, "Oh, you better work hard or you'll end up working at McDonald's." Like, what's wrong with working at McDonald's?
Yeah.
It's an honest job. They treat you, they train you extremely well. It is one of the most operationally sound businesses on this planet. And when individuals refer to employees in these industries as low skilled labor, that is
Yeah.
extremely offensive. Okay, like there's somebody at the other end of that conversation that you're having that would be very offended by that. And you could probably tell my tone of voice has changed a little bit because it's offensive to me. And that's part of what I want to do with Brass is say, you know
Hmm.
what? You are the stars of the show.
Hmm.
Like our food are going to attract customers, absolutely. But it's our people that are going to bring them back. And if you think about that, if Brasa, not if, when
Hmm.
Brasa gets to 100 or 1,000 stores, customers aren't going to care who I am as the CEO. They're going to care about the employees at the store
Yeah.
level. So tell me who's more important, me as the CEO or the team member at the store who remembers Timur's name, right? Like it's obvious. It's not the CEO.
Yeah.
So that's another key reason why I'm going into this industry is I want to shift the societal norms of how we reference individuals, hardworking individuals that make this economy move forward. I want the perception to change.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, that's actually quite good. Yeah, because yeah, you do hear that all the time. Like, oh, you need to get better grades, otherwise you'll end up in McDonald's. And I'm like, but
Good,
yeah.
good. I worked there when I was 13, and
Mm.
fundamentally, I can draw back some things in my career today that I learned at McDonald's when I was 13 years old.
Well, yeah.
And it was interesting in 2018. McDonald's Canada reached out to me to be this. They didn't know that I worked at McDonald's when I was 13 in
All
North
right.
Vancouver, but they reached out to me and they asked me to be the spokesperson for their National Hiring Day campaign
Okay.
because I had a background in company culture and employee engagement. So it really came full circle to me. So I take a lot of offense when people demean the industry and
Hmm.
even try to chop down McDonald's at their knee. Like they're they're a decent company. Like, you sure, maybe you don't like their food. Great. That's your opinion.
Yeah. So how would you make sure that like your employees would not have this situation where they come in like, oh, you get bad grades, you'll end up at Brasa. Like, how would you make sure that I guess they're trying to be more respected? You know what I mean, though. I'm not like
I don't, to be
okay. So
honest. I
doesn't
don't.
like because I think like like how you said about McDonald's and they have no people just go, oh, it's just fast food. Anyone can do fast food. So how would you make sure that your workers would be like, look, I'm a specialist in my field. I'm really good at making this food. I do a good job. So how would you make them feel like they're specialists? They do this well.
Yeah. Well, they won't be specialists actually. Like, no,
Mm-hmm.
like we're not going to have trained chefs, right? These
Mm-hmm.
are going to be everyday people who can work hard. And what I'm going to attract people is my background in developing my own career, going from working in a call center to where I am today. I would like to believe that there's some value in that I can pass along to our team members. So essentially, and I'm kind of spitballing here with how I'll frame it, but when I start recruiting for store one and then store 100 and beyond that, is come as you are, this is the brand. Use it as a springboard for something else. Now, if you come to Brasa Peruvian Kitchen as a frontline employee, let's say you start, at the cashier level, perhaps,
Mm-hmm.
maybe one day you want to grow within the company. Maybe you're studying marketing at some sort of post-secondary institution and or online, and you are working at Brasa because you need to pay rent or you want some money for the weekend, whatever the case might be. Okay, fantastic. Well, we're going to need marketers in our company. So come learn about the company,
Mm-hmm.
contribute to our success. We'll pay you well, we'll pay you on time, but we're also going to give you learning and development opportunities. So if
Okay.
you come to the company as a cashier, maybe you're our next marketing coordinator, right? Like this isn't the be all end all. The position that you start with
Mm-hmm.
could be the stepping stone to the next thing. Now, on the flip side to that, let's say that same scenario happens. Somebody is in marketing and they're working at Brasa Peruvian Kitchen part-time because they want some money. But their real ambition is to be a marketer within the cannabis industry. So not our industry. That's fine too. Just come to Brasa. We'll pay you on time. We'll give you learning and development opportunities so that when you graduate,
Mm-hmm.
you can move on to a different industry. I'm fine with that. As long as you give your whole self to the company, because while you're with us, because we're going to be doing the same for you. And I will become your personal recruiter. Like Timur, let's say you were that individual in
Mm-hmm.
marketing school and you were working part-time with Brasa and you came to me or came to your manager and said, look, I really am interested in working in the cannabis industry. Can you help me? We will break down walls, open doors for you to be able to find you that next great company. So I'll give you an example.
Okay.
Uh, I told you earlier that I wanted to build the company I'd always dreamed of building.
Mm-hmm.
And that involves a lot of initiatives that people might read or learn about and say, that's crazy. But we're going to have, as we grow, we're going to have a website. And right now, let's just say it's brasaperuvian.com/hire us or
Mm-hmm.
something, where it's almost going to be like a social network in the sense that Timur, if you came to us and said, I'm looking to get into the cannabis industry, well, what we'll do is we'll put a picture up of you on this landing page with a short little bio of who you are, where you went to school, pretty much your resume. And
Okay.
there will be a button that says contact Timur. And we'll actively share that website. So it's kind of a recruiting website
Okay.
where
Nice.
we're going to go to the market and say, look, we have a lot of great people here who want to work in other industries. We're going to help facilitate you getting that dream job. And now the ROI of that is like, one, it's just the right thing to do. Like if Timur, if you aspire to be in a different industry, who am I to convince you, no, stay in our industry?
Yeah.
That's just not how relationships work, let alone business. But I'm trying to recreate what uh, businesses look and feel like, how they should operate. But let's say you get that job at that cannabis company, Timur, you are going to think of Brasa like one might think of their alma mater or the university
Mm.
that they went to. Like that was the institution that helped me get to where I am, along with other things. You'll see people wear hooded sweaters or jackets
Yeah.
of their former university. Why can't businesses be positioned that way as well? I think they can.
Okay. To be sure. Well, I'm actually really impressed. That's kind of cool. I like that.
It's
I like.
it's I like this part of business
Mm.
because I've been fortunate. Somebody in my family gave me this creativity. I still haven't pinpointed who it is. And I talked to my mom and my dad, and we're trying to figure out who I am. And who gave me what skills. It's actually really interesting conversation. I enjoyed it a lot, but the ability just to like think and be like, what is possible?
Yeah.
Like, and when you start thinking like there's no way we can do that, you're on the right path because nobody's done it before. And that's exciting to me.
Yeah.
That's where business gets really fun.
Okay. Yeah, because I can see with a lot of businesses they just go, oh, we need to like, minimize how much we pay the people and to maximize profits and all that crap. But no,
Let
I
me
do
put
I
it
do
this
like
way.
this. Mm,
Let me put it this way. How would your relationship work in your personal life
mm.
with your partner if you said, I've got to really minimize how much I support them? I've got to really minimize how much I allow them to talk.
Yeah.
That you wouldn't
Yeah,
have
pretty
a
much.
partner,
No.
but yet we take the same mentality into the relationships we have in our business. I
Yeah.
don't care whether it is a relationship with your partner, your family member, or somebody in your company. There's commonalities in how you have to build fruitful relationships, period.
Yeah, because I did notice in the jobs I did whenever there was like you're working for a manager who's just like, look, just do your thing, don't talk to me. You come in, you do your thing, you're like, bye, I'm done. But whenever someone cares and they're like trying to help you and they motivate you, you tend to do more work. And it's good for you because you learn more, but it's also good for the company because you do more. So it's kind of like it's funny how a lot of companies do forget, but hey, employees are a little bit important. They kind of do all your stuff for you.
They're, employees are the most important.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
what a novel idea. Like treat somebody well and they might do something for me that will improve my life and make it
Yeah.
easier. Like and then you reciprocate. That it's just clear as day for
Yeah.
some.
Shocking. No one's ever thought of this. Ah, right. So what's the story behind Brasa? So how did you like? I just want to ask, like, how did this happen? Did you wake up one day and like, oh, I have an idea, or was it just kind of like, you had experiences that kind of pushed you, and then just expanded into something like?
Yeah. So this is a question I very much enjoy answering
Mm-hmm.
because it's personal.
Right.
And I'm going to continue to enjoy sharing it. You're one of the
Good.
first, you're one of actually the first, maybe the first podcast I've shared this story
Mm-hmm.
with. I mentioned earlier that I was looking for something different, something that was scalable. I wanted to build a company that would be revered and admired. I'm a student of business. I love learning about companies that are good, not just good financially, but like morally. They have a moral compass, like a Starbucks. And I've always aspired to build a company that has that type of brand awareness globally.
Mm-hmm.
So I started thinking about what industries do I feel are strong. They typically are able to survive recessions and
Mm-hmm.
economic disruptions, and what ones are really people focused. And that ultimately came down to fast casual restaurants. During the pandemic, fast casual restaurants have been doing very well. You look at companies like Chipotle, which I really admire. You look at in the US, a company called Sweet Green, fantastic commitment to their brand and their employees. And so that's where it motivated me to go into that industry. Then I started thinking about, okay, well, what's the concept going to be? And being Canadian Peruvian, I know how special the food is from Peru. It would rival Italian food, Greek food, which are also both fantastic
Mm-hmm.
culinaries. Uh, but then I started thinking, like, why is it that Peruvian food is not as popular as the others?
Mm-hmm.
If you've Gordon Ramsay, Chef Nobu, many of these high profile chefs all rave about Peruvian food. Two of the world's top Michelin star restaurants, Maido and Central, are both in Lima, Peru. That
All
says a
right.
lot. See, people don't know these things. And Being Peruvian, I can say this without, I can say this fairly. The country has many special things to it,
Mm-hmm.
ranging outside of food as well. But they're not very good at marketing to the North American market. And to be a household name, you have to be able to conquer North America
Yeah.
globally. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
But we've seen many case studies like this: Starbucks, Nike, all these
Yeah.
conquered North America first and then grew from there. So with that in mind, I came to the conclusion that to try Peruvian food, and there's many fantastic full service restaurants throughout North America that you can visit, but it requires a 1 hour to 2 hour seating, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to really enjoy it. But that's a lot to ask the everyday consumer. Commit, let's say, $100 and over an hour of your time to a cuisine you've never had before.
Yeah.
Individuals think they're exploratory eaters, but they're really not. When push comes
No.
to shove, you stick with what you know, right? If you think about it, a young married couple, they don't
Mm-hmm.
get to go out very much because they just had a child. They maybe go out once a month, and they're given the opportunity. Do we go to the Italian place we know we love, or do we go to this Peruvian place that a couple people have said are good? We don't want to make a bad decision because we don't get out often. Let's go back to the Italian place. And
Yeah.
that's just human nature, and that's fine. So that's where the fast casual comes in. Let's create things that are recognizable to North Americans, like salads and quinoa based bowls. And
Mm-hmm.
let's flavor the protein with ají amarillo, ají panca, rocoto, things that are very traditional Peruvian and are only grown in Peru. So we're going to attract customers with familiarity and hook them with the Peruvian flavor and
Mm-hmm.
exports as well. So I'm going to drop some knowledge with you guys. Peru has over 4,000 different types of potatoes. Everyone equates, in the US, people equate the potato to Idaho, and then globally, people equate the potato to Ireland. The potato
Mm-hmm.
capital of the world is Peru. They have 50 different types of corn. One of their corns is this dark purple corn. That has, I believe it's 7 to 9 times more antioxidants than blueberries. They make a drink called chicha morada out of this. They are major exporters of mangoes and avocados and asparagus. Between Peru and Bolivia, interchangeably, they are the #1 exporters in the world of quinoa. Everyone knows what quinoa is now. But not many people know that quinoa, a lot of the global supply of quinoa comes from Peru. Now, this goes back to what I said earlier. I'm sure I just shared all that with you, and you're like, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Peruvians aren't very good at marketing to North
Yeah.
America, right? So that is the business. And I'm betting my career that people are going to love the flavors of
Mm-hmm.
Peru. This is not traditional Peruvian. And I'm going to have to say this on every podcast I go on,
Yeah.
because if you are Peruvian, you are very proud. You love your food. Lomo saltado should be cooked a certain way. And if it's not, the hell with you. So I am telling people now, this is not traditional Peruvian food.
Okay.
This is Peruvian flavors. It's modern Peruvian food. My goal is that somebody's going to come to Brasa Peruvian Kitchen and really like the flavor, and then go to a Peruvian full service restaurant run by a Peruvian family. That would make me really happy. Then you can come and see the whole show, because what I'm doing is what I want to do is break down that barrier, that friction that
Mm-hmm.
people will have from going, I don't know what Peruvian food is, to, am I really going to give up 2 hours of my Friday night to try something I don't know? We're going to be that conduit in the middle that gets people to go to that full service restaurant. And we're not going to own those restaurants. We hope
Yeah.
that a lovely Peruvian family is going to run that. And we hope that we can be a part of their success. That's the concept. Now, you know the saying, it's not personal, it's business. This is the opposite for me. This is very personal to me.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up in elementary school when I was 7, 8, 9 years old, living in Vancouver, I went to an elementary school with primarily Caucasian kids. I was
Mm-hmm.
maybe one of the only people of color in that school. And I remember being embarrassed to be Peruvian. And why? Because I was bullied. I have this
Mm-hmm.
like obscure name. My kids would come over to our house like you would to play or whatever, and they would poke fun at like it kind of smelled in our house because our food smelled. My food looked different at lunchtime, where the other kids just had normal peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I spoke a different language. And I was embarrassed. I told my
Mm-hmm.
parents, like, don't speak to me in Spanish at home. Speak to me in English. I want to be like the other kids. And my dad had always talked about opening up a polleria, which is
Rotisserie chicken.
rotisserie chicken. But I was about to call it, do I call it a chicken shop or like just a rotisserie chicken restaurant, a polleria?
Mm-hmm.
Like, he had always wanted to do that in Canada. When I was in the 10th grade, he had a restaurant as well, a full service restaurant. It wasn't Peruvian, but unfortunately he made a bad deal and had to file for bankruptcy because of that. And I remember, again, this was in the 10th grade, I was living at home with my parents in their townhouse in North Vancouver. And I remember standing at the top of the stairs and seeing my dad just collapse and fall to his knees and crying and shouting, "There's no money in this house." And my mom standing over him, just saying, "We'll be fine. Just pick yourself back up." So when it comes to this business, it's very personal. It is a legacy thing for my family. I'm wanting to do what my dad wanted. I want to accomplish what my dad wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I want them to just be proud. So that, like, yes, I aspire to have 1,000 stores and $1 billion valuation, right? Because I said earlier, like, I want to build a scalable business that is, one day publicly traded perhaps, but at the core of what's driving me is seeing my dad, remembering the kids pick on me. And it makes me emotional. I'll be honest. Like, it ignites this fire inside of me where I'm like, I don't want to say I'm doing this for the country, like, because I was born in Canada. I can barely speak the language. I can speak Spanish. I can understand it. I can't write it or read it very well. So I'm not going to pound my chest like with like patriot. Like, I'm not that. But there's family ties to this. There's family values. And I'm going to have to be trampled and stepped on by a herd of people before I give up.
Okay. To be fair, that is actually quite cool. Not gonna lie.
I like businesses that have a soul and a story, and I believe customers like that too.
You feel a bit more attachment.
Yeah, and I feel like I know my own consumer behaviors is if there's two companies to do business from, and I know one of them has a great story or they treat their employees well, which is a story in itself, I'm going to go to that company because I have a soul. So I want to do business with companies that have a lot of purpose.
Okay. Seb, I think you had a question, didn't you?
Oh, yes. Like, I got into all the Peruvian food. You got me hungry when you started with that. And I like the intrinsic motivation that you have to push this, because you go to start a business because you want to earn money, but you need something intrinsically that's going to push you to go further on it and motivate other people. Like, your story motivates me a lot. As a Peruvian myself, like, there's this sense of patriotism that started growing recently, but when I was growing up, I also felt that, like, people felt ashamed of their roots. Like you had quinoa growing up in the mountain area in the Sierra, and people wouldn't care because it wasn't marketed properly. And how, for example, when you see a ceviche, people are gonna say, "Oh, it's a fish." I was trying to describe it to friends: fish sashimi with lime. I
Yeah.
don't know. It's really hard, but what you're doing is adapting all of that, and it's something really respectable and really cool. Like,
Yeah, I just see it as a global opportunity. Like it's there's there's a reference called product market fit in business, and it's like, do people like your food or your product? The market's already told me that they love Peruvian food. It just hasn't been presented in a transactional enough fashion to be able to get it in people's hands every day. Like I'm building Brasa to be almost like coffee in the sense that you can have it every single day because it's nutritious food as well with Peruvian flavors. Oh, and here's another thing. Peru manufactures or produces the most amount of organic coffee in the world. And they like that alone, that statistic, and I hope I'm up to date on that, but I know that was for fact at some point recently.
Mm-hmm.
But like they're also excelling coffee, which is an everyday globally consumed product, and they do it the best in the world or the most in the world. And from an organic perspective, North Americans love organic. You throw organic, like you could Ford Motor Company could say this car we came up with is organic, and we want to know what the hell they're talking about. We're like, yeah,
like,
I'll
yes.
buy it. Yeah. So I'm going to have a very good time building this company, and I'm really excited to bring a lot of people along with me.
Yeah, you said about coffee, and I'm like, well, the first thing I think of is like Colombia or something like this. I never even realized that Peru is like one of the bigger ones.
Yeah, Colombia's of course has their Guatemala too. Like there's many parts of the world that are great at coffee, and Peru's a part of that group. Goes back to marketing.
Yeah, as you say, like it's not mentioned as much.
No.
Yeah. So what's like one of your favorite foods? Like Seb, sorry, I'll let Seb talk about it because you can see how excited he is.
No, like sure. No, I was gonna ask something between those lines. Like I made a lomo saltado a couple of weeks ago. I've been making tequeños. Tequeños are Venezuelan, but the Peruvian way. Like there's a lot of things that you can recommend people to start doing, like pan con chicharrón. And what would you recommend the audience to start with?
Okay, so here's another thing. Peruvian food is highly influenced by Chinese and Japanese culture because of immigration in the 18 and 1900s. And I'm going to drop some statistics on you that'll blow your mind because Chinese and Japanese immigration in the 18 and 1900s, these immigrants came to Canada or came to Peru with the things that they like to cook with: soy sauce, green onions, and things like this that are staples in Chinese and Japanese cuisine. So that's where the word fusion comes into play with food. You take two cultures of food and you fuse them together. In Lima, the capital of Peru, which has 9 million people, that is a lot of people, there's 6,000 Chinese restaurants known as chifas. 6,000. And you'll walk down by my grandma's house right around the corner in Lima. There are like 3 chifas, 3 Chinese restaurants side by side, and they're all full. The Japanese relationship is known as Nikkei. So Japanese Peruvian food is Nikkei. Nobu, the restaurant chain in the US and actually global restaurant chain, which is popularized in popular culture by Drake, will rap about it. That was started by Chef Nobu and Robert De Niro. Chef Nobu got his start in the 1950s cooking in Peru. So everyone's like, we love Nobu. It's Japanese food. Like, yeah, it is. Half of it, but it's Japanese Peruvian. But nobody knows this. Chodomade, which is a restaurant chain as well. Japanese Peruvian. It's Nikkei. So to answer your question, Sebastian, I would say the best place for a newbie to Peruvian food to start would be lomo saltado, because it's like a Japanese a Peruvian stir fry. So you've got your tenderloin, you've got your onion, you have your tomato, you have your French fries, you have your rice. Like, it's magic. That's where I would start, because people know what stir fry is, right? Like, you got to warm people up a little bit, let them get their feet underneath them, and then they'll start exploring on their own. And then from there, like, of course, ceviche is like a staple. You have to have ceviche. There's like other ones that my parents used to make me, like arroz tapado. Arroz con pato. Like, man, it just goes on and on and on. And they're good at soups too, like chupe de camarones. Like, it doesn't end, guys. Like, it just, like, the cuisine is so vast that, like, you couldn't, if you try to eat a Peruvian meal one per day, you would be going on for months and months. Like, it almost like does not end. Dakus might be one of my, so for those not familiar, it's like this bean and rice fried pancake that they put an egg on. It's like, it brings you to your knees. It's so good. And I'm like, look, I'm biased, extraordinarily biased. I just recommend, this is what I would actually recommend when this pandemic goes away and people are moving about more freely. Find a local Peruvian chef in your city. Pay them a little bit of money. It'll be cheaper than going to a restaurant. Pay them a little bit of money. Have them come to your house. Invite a couple people over and just let them do their thing. That's a fantastic way of getting started if you want to save some money and do it more affordably and be able to put some money in a local chef's pocket directly. Do that. You will blow the minds of your guests. Actually, I think I'm going to do that soon. I've just reminded myself. I absolutely have to do that again, and I've done it before, and it's always a hit. And that's what I love about food. Like, who doesn't like food? Like, it's just so communal. It's so celebratory. It's conversational. I'm very much looking forward to the next chapter of my career. I'm hungry.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I actually didn't have lunch yet, so that's great. Wait, are you guys all? You guys all in Canada. Yeah, I'm in England, so it's 2:30 now. So,
Right.
No worries. So I think now we'll just transition to Dylan's going to be talking a bit more about the employee side, the worker side. So Dylan, if you want to take over.
Yeah. So first of all, I just want to say the baku baku that you mentioned earlier on. I don't know if I'm butchering it, but it sounds absolutely delicious. Taku.
Taku. TACU.
I didn't really catch that well, but
that's
I think
right.
we need to find a different person than Dylan from now on.
And it's 9:40 a.m. in the morning, and I'm starving just like hearing about all this stuff. And then you're mentioning about how he's gonna bring you to your knees, and it's like, oh my god. But I was actually going to ask you about something a little different from the food side. This is more on the worker side, and specifically about work culture. In the beginning, you talked a little bit about how if someone is interested in marketing and they came into Brasa, they could venture out into many different industries, such as the cannabis industry, for example, if they wanted to after they graduated. But to you, what fundamentally makes a great work culture? And could you elaborate on maybe how important it is to have a great work culture in Brasa to, develop as a brand and as a company?
Right. So I'll start at the beginning. My definition of a great work culture is suited for me. I don't impose my vision or my definition of success on anybody, because I'm cut from a certain cloth. Like, I do believe that working hard and working more than the minimum of 40 hours per week is important to being successful. Like, I'm not the type of person like, 80 hours a week, like that you have to do that to be successful. No, I don't think it has to go to that extent, but it has to be a highly competitive culture where high performers come together. The team that wins the Stanley Cup this year is going to be the team of the best, hardest working high performers. So I reject the idea that business is any different than that. I believe in honest communication and candor. If you've got something on your mind, don't go to your colleague and have side conversations. Be courageous enough to have a respectful, honest conversation with your peers. So like, enough of the, I'm not going to deal with office politics. I don't have enough time. We're going to plan to grow very fast. So we need adults to have adult-like conversations with each other based on performance, based on things that have been said or done, or question opinions. Like, I welcome, Dylan, if you worked with me and you had your role and I had my role and I made a decision, I would welcome you saying, Michel, I don't understand why you made that decision. Can you help me? Can you explain it to me so I can understand it? Yeah, absolutely. I need to connect the dots for you. But instead, what happens in most work culture? Dylan goes to his colleagues being like, Michel doesn't know what he's doing. I don't agree with this decision. Well, then come talk to me, right? Like, I'm not going to deal with that. And it's going to be very hard to get hired at Brasa. Because I know exactly who I'm looking for, and it's people with high character, high integrity. They're individuals that care about their own performance as individuals before they are employees. And I'm going to pay more than the market. Because if you want to attract top talent, you can't just have a good work culture with beer on Fridays. Like, that just doesn't work anymore. And it's bizarre that it even worked in the first place, to be honest. I rather save that beer on Fridays and having these highly designed offices. I rather be a little more economically responsible on that side, to be able to have an opportunity to put more money in your pocket, to be able to invest in things like learning and development, quarterly meetings where we all come together to learn from other experts. Like, that all costs money. So where's the money going to come from? But and I have a 3-to-1 rule with every employee. I'm going to do 3 things for you, and 2 of them I legally have to do. I'm going to pay you well, I'm going to pay you on time, and I'm going to give you learning and growth opportunities so that you can grow within this company, or you can leave and grow somewhere else, which is absolutely fine as well for me. The one thing you have to do is you have to bring your whole self to work every single day. So what does that mean? That means arriving on time. That means making sure that our social media is scheduled to be released that week with proper grammar and diction. That means trying to find cheaper ways of doing things, living within our values. Like, as soon as the employee stops doing that, there'll be a coaching opportunity, but then I'm probably going to move to offboarding them, which is a nicer way of saying I will fire them, because that's not fair to me or the company. We're holding our end of the bargain. We're paying you more than the market. We're paying you on time, and we're investing thousands and thousands of dollars. And as you grow, that becomes millions of dollars in making sure that you're set up for success, not as an employee, as a human being. And you can't meet me halfway by doing one thing. That's not how it's going to work here. So I am going to tell people from the very beginning, like, this is what our culture is like. Mm-hmm. So there's no surprises. I'm telling you right now. And like, that's how I'm defining how I am shaping the culture from day one, because to build a house, you need to build the foundation first. And in the early days of building a company, these are some of the things that you can start thinking about. What are your values? What is your purpose? How are you going to hire people according to those values? And it's going to be a very fun work culture. It's going to be fun. You're going to like the people that you work with, right? You guys all, share the same interests for the most part, laugh at the same things. But at the core of it, you're good people. And I'm thankful that someone in my family, or I learned along the way, quite possibly my greatest skill is I'm a good judge of character. And the individuals that you work with are going to be very fun, uplifting, nice, kind people, but it's going to be a very competitive work culture as well. I'm going to push you just like you're going to push me to be better and evolve and make better decisions and smarter decisions. And it's going to be a fun company. I'm looking forward to building it.
Just as a follow-up, I was going to ask, when you're interviewing a certain individual and you mentioned about how the individual needs to be very motivated, very hardworking. But what are some of the ways that you've been able to differentiate a good apple from a bad apple, for example?
Yeah, at the end of the day, hiring is a guess. You are making a calculated guess. And there's some professional interviewers out there where they speak a fantastic game, position themselves so well, and then they show up and you're like, you're not who I thought you were. And that happens to everyone, right? So what I'm doing is I'm building out this hiring process that is multi-layered to catch people slipping up. So I'll give you an example. Some companies hire like this. When can you start? Tomorrow, you're hired. Well, now we wonder why, and these companies wonder why they have such low employee retention. It's like, because you haven't front loaded the work. So I hire like I'm planning my wedding. When my fiance and I are planning our wedding, we're very selective in who we're going to be inviting to the wedding. We're also very strategic on who are we having seated next to each other during the reception. Why don't we take that same strict methodology to how we hire? So instead of asking, when can you start, and making that the basis of the interview process, let's try to understand the human being first. So the first step, let's say, Dylan, let's say I'm recruiting and you apply. The first thing that'll happen is I'm going to do a phone interview. And right then and there, when I hear you answer your phone, or even like, what does his voicemail sound like? That's going to tell me a lot about the person, right? Like, in that voicemail, does that person sound like a kind human, right? Like I can hear that. When they answers the phone, does Dylan say, and I say, hey, this is Michel calling from Brasa. May I speak to Dylan? And Dylan's like, who are you? Oh, sorry. What did you guys do again? I applied to 20 places that day. You've kind of already lost me. But what happens if Dylan's like, oh my goodness, thank you so much for calling me. I was really hoping you would. Like, yes, I will absolutely make some time right now to talk to you. What type of questions do you have? I have some questions for you. Like, I'm like, I think I like Dylan so far, right? Like, these are the judges of character that I'm trying to find, and it's got to be multi-layer. So after that phone interview, I'll invite Dylan for an in-person interview to understand first, is he going to live within our culture? Is he going to live within the values that we have set within the company? So let's say we have 5 core values. We'll ask you 2 questions per core value in that interview to understand if you're going to fit within the values of the company. But I'll also pay attention, of course, like, does Dylan arrive on time? After the interview, I'll ask the first person that you said hello to at the store, Dylan, or wherever the interview is happening. I'll ask him, like, how was Dylan's demeanor when he arrived? Was he respectful? What did you pick up on Dylan? And that person might say, you know what? I noticed that Dylan held the door open for like 3 people to walk into the store before he entered himself. Like those are the type of things that I'm picking up on because I can't train that, right? Like your actions are put on display when nobody's watching.
Oh, I see.
Right? Like when nobody's watching, that is who you are. And that's why what I'm trying to catch is understanding who you are by paying attention to your actions when nobody is watching you.
Okay. So I just want to jump in with a quick question. So how will that scale up, when your company is like 1,000 stores, 10,000 stores, how would you be able to train interviewers to be able to pick up on the things you pick up on?
It's gonna have to turn into a psychology class of some sort. These are life experiences that I've been able to formulate into these processes. It's a really good question, Timur. I do not have the strategy or approach crystallized just yet, but for now, I'll respond by it is going to be a core responsibility of mine to be able to train the layers of support below me. So I'm going to need subject matter experts. So these individuals are going to have to go through like a boot camp with me that I host to pass along some of these learnings to them. And then let's just say there's 5 single points of accountability for hiring. Those 5 are going to have to train the next 5 and so forth. And it's just going to have to cascade from there. But that goes back to what I said earlier, where even if it isn't an interviewer, everyone will be in the company will be given the opportunity to learn how to be a skilled interviewer. So let's say Sebastian is our head of HR. Okay. We're going to, of course, teach Sebastian how to hire the way that we do. But let's say Dylan works at a store in Boston, but he's not a manager. He just joined us. He'll still be able to access the same education. It'll just probably be virtual, like in our learning portal of some sort. So that's what I mean of helping people using Brasa as a springboard to something else. Because Dylan might go leave the company one day, but he leaves with not only did he get paid and he got paid on time, but he also now knows how to be an interviewer. And then he goes works in a construction company, let's say, and he's an interviewer for that. Like that's what I mean is that like everyone is going to be given the same opportunity to learn.
Okay. Yeah, that is quite awesome. Not gonna lie. I like that. Like whenever I work for companies and they have their own, what's it called? Yeah, like you said, learning portals. It's neat, I think, because then you can always improve on certain things, and you don't have to be stuck at a certain level. You can go, which is.
Well, yeah, it just doesn't make sense to me why all companies wouldn't do that. Like we have access to YouTube, like we could be YouTubing it ourselves.
Yeah.
But why not just like do the same thing that YouTube became for everyday people, but just build that for your employees? For me, it's just a no-brainer.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more with what you were saying about how restaurants like hire according to the date, like a while before. And this is something that Dylan and I have been working on for more than a year. We wanted to innovate the selection process in such old school industry, because the culinary, it's a lot of word of mouth, and it's a high turnover industry.
Yep.
And with low profit margins.
But it doesn't have to be. So
yeah, exactly.
It doesn't have to be this way. Like this industry is known as having high turnover. Well, so do other industries, right? Like, but they have made a conscious effort of figuring it out. So why is it that this industry has high turnover? Well, there's a myriad of different reasons, one of which is the lack of care. You treat these employees as minimum wage employees. Well, of course they're going to leave you. They don't respect you, right? And just like if you had a partner and you didn't respect each other, that relationship is fractured and it's going to be hard to rebuild. Often with employees in this industry as well, as people are screaming and shouting with minimum wage being raised, that should be a celebratory time that minimum wage is being raised, right? Like stop taking from the workers and stop like the gap in North America 30 years ago, the gap between what the minimum wage worker made and the CEO was X. That gap has grown exponentially between what the CEO makes and what the minimum worker makes, and that's bothersome to me. And that's not what we're going to do at Brasa. I'm going to pay myself humbly, but I'm going to make sure that our employees are given as much money as we can afford, and tons of learning and development opportunities to be able to stop the high employee turnover. Like, you know, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, you can't expect a different result.
Mhm.
So for me, it doesn't seem all that complicated, but
Yeah.
we'll see once we start growing.
No, I agree with it's. I don't think it's complicated to change it. Dylan and I have been working on this platform that we're building on to help the selection process improve, because we did a lot of research and we found out that people feel that their job's not significant.
Sure.
And that's a problem for them, because how can you identify with your workplace if you don't feel valuable? And what you're trying to bring, how you want to empower your workers is crucial to like get their job significant better.
Yeah, the significance of the frontline employee is astronomical. And I wasn't saying what I said earlier about how I'm not as important as a frontline employee. I mean that. I'm very genuine. I don't care if people, I shouldn't be put on a pedestal. CEOs shouldn't be put on a pedestal. Let me put it this way. I watch the number one sport I watch is hockey. And I always found it interesting. Actually, this is a better example. The NBA, when the Toronto Raptors won the NBA championship and the commissioner of the league handed the trophy to the team, who do you think got to receive it and touch it first, which is an NBA norm? Who do you think touched it first?
The coach?
Okay. Sebastian?
I think Mesai Ujiri.
The chairman, Larry Tannenbaum, who has, I don't know, is he yes, he's the head of the company. I understand that. But you know what I always thought? Why doesn't the head trainer get to touch it first?
Yeah.
Like, it just makes no sense to me. In hockey, it's the captain of the team. I would love to see a captain say, I'm not touching it first, and bring out the training team, the equipment managers to touch it first. Like that's what should be done. But what do I know? I'm just one person with an opinion. But I don't know. And that it's very, I talked to you earlier about how I'm discovering more about who I am and trying to draw some lines. Like, I'm quick tempered. I get that from my dad. Like, I'm very clear about that one. My mom taught me to care a lot. But going back to my dad, like, I wrote a book called People First Culture, and in a way, he inspired the book, right? He's a very selfless human being. He will always give his last dollar away, and starve. And I think these attributes in human beings need to be applauded more than MBAs, than other things like this in business, because don't take my kindness for a weakness. Like, that used to be a saying. Like, being kind is a strength, and you're going to attract a lot of good people. But I'll say that with an asterisk, as in, you need to be kind and smart and work hard, right? Like, with Brasa, like, if everybody's kind and we don't have results, that does not work. My investors don't care that we're all kind. They care about the bottom line as well. So there's a balance between the two, and it's a fragile balance that companies need to find.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. It is a tough line to walk. Yeah.
So why most companies don't walk it, because it's hard.
Yeah, it's true. It's just like it's easier to go one way or the other.
It is.
Yeah. So we have one final question for you. So I think because at the start you did mention you want to be recognizable like Starbucks, like all the other places. Would you want it to be a thing like you walk into Brasa and then you see me and I was like, oh, Timur, do you want the usual? I'm like, yeah, of course. And then you just like you have it ready and it's all perfect because I come in every 12 after work or 12 after work. Is that something you're looking for as well?
Yeah, I think that intimacy can scale. Each one of our stores are going to have team members that are extraordinarily trained. One of our onboarding training modules for new employees is actually going to be a memorization module. We're going to teach you how to memorize things better. Why? Because we want you to remember Timur's order, right? We want you to remember he prefers the spinach with ají amarillo shrimp and the mango turmeric dressing, right? Like, because now Timur feels good about himself as a consumer. He feels special. Yeah. He'll bring his colleague to work to make him look good, right? Like we all do that. It's human nature, right? We want to be, we want to be recognized and celebrated, right? So to answer your question, absolutely, that will be my expectation. But to get employees to do that, you need to hire the right people that will care enough to do that. You have to incentivize them well enough to do that. Because when you ask your employees to do something, they are quietly asking themselves or subconsciously asking themselves, what's in it for me?
Yeah.
And if all you're going to do is, well, I pay you a wage, well, good luck. That's why you have low employee retention, right? So hire the right people. Train them extremely well, not just one time, but every month, give them more and more education and let them grow within your company or let them leave and grow somewhere else.
Okay. I like that because there's nothing cool when you walk into a shop and it's like, oh, hi Timur, how you doing? Here's your special coffee. That I'm like, oh, thank you so much. You remember me.
I will build a business just off of just subtle little things like this. And what is that? That's just good customer service, right? Like before the era of TikTok and digital marketing, how did people in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s grow a business? They grew it through word of mouth. Yep. Now, why did word of mouth happen? It's because you have a good product, but it's also because you had an amazing customer experience. Yep. My grandfather was a fishmonger in Lima, Peru. And do you think he had Google ads to sell more fish? No, he had to have fresh fish and he had to be a nice human being. That's it. Yeah. Right. That's it. So that's what I want to do with Brasa is I want to make it a little bit more grassroots and just be a good company. Like just one where people are like, I like them, right? They see our logo somewhere and they just smile because they're like, I like that company. That's a good company. That's with good people with soul. And I think this world needs a little bit more soulful for-purpose companies.
Yeah. Nice. So I'll be definitely looking out for your restaurant in Manchester. Hopefully that will be, within a few years.
You guys have Nando's there. You guys have a lot of Nando's there.
Yes, Nando's.
So Nando's is an inspiration of mine. They have over 1,000 stores. I believe the saying in the UK is let's go get a cheeky Nando's or something.
Yes, correct.
Like this.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So I've done my research. Nando's is a fantastic company. So great Portuguese food, consistent. I'm not like others. I don't bash my future competition. I pay respect and I respect them, right? If you're going to get to 1,000 stores, you have done something right. Nando's has done fantastic on the consumer packaged goods. Their hot sauces are in stores. I applaud what they have done.
Well, especially now it's kind of like, it's not only just a restaurant. It's kind of, I want to say an experience because a cheeky Nando's is not like, it's not a meal. It's like, I can't even explain. Like I've lived in England for 5 years and I still can't properly explain it. It is kind of a cultural phenomenon of sorts.
Yeah. And they're building a great business at the same time.
They do. Yeah, they are. So is that something you're looking forward to? It's like, oh, let's go have a cheeky Brasa. And like, yeah, we're all going with our friends.
However, which way they say it, I don't care what language you use, just come often.
Just come often. All right. Okay. Oh yeah, and for the people on the podcast, so do tell when you're planning to launch. In the next...
I'm about we are in March 2021. I'm probably about 3 months away. This pandemic has made my opening date a moving target, and it's been I'm thinking of this optimistically that I'll have a really good story to tell my grandkids one day. And that's keeping me sane because I'm almost coming to, my patience is wearing pretty thin right now, but a few months from now, and then I'll put my head down for 7 to 10 years and won't lift it until then.
Okay, that's quite cool. Right. So before we do end this, do you have any questions for us? I don't know. I like to ask that at the end.
How soon are you going to go try Peruvian food, Dylan and Timur? What's the date? What can Sebastian and I hold you to? 30 to 60 days? 30 to 60 days. It's not more of a question. It's more of a request. Within 30 to 60 days, and Timur, you will have Peruvian restaurants in the UK. Within 30 to 60 days, Sebastian and I would like to hear that you have gone to try Peruvian food. And if you need recommendations on where to go, you know who to ask.
Okay.
So it's not a question, it's more of a request.
It's more of an order.
And it's an easy one. Yeah, I'm asking you to go eat delicious food.
Yeah, I will try. Yeah, once restaurants open here, we can do that. Yeah. So for now, because you can only do like takeaways. So
okay. Well, we'll hold you. We'll give you some leniency given the pandemic.
That's good. Yeah, I will do that. Yes.
We'll do that too as well. Yeah, for sure. I'm excited.
I hope
otherwise you're fired. Yeah. Okay, so that was a very, very nice podcast. I really like hearing stories from people and like how, because especially when they're connected, you can it's a more interesting conversation when they're actually connected and you're just listening to like, oh yeah, I want to do this because this, when I was a kid, I had this experiences and I want to bring it to you guys. It's just a more dynamic conversation and very interesting story as well. So I appreciate
and I appreciate you guys welcoming me. Sebastian, thank you for reaching out. Dylan, Timur, pleasure to meet both of you guys. Have a good weekend, and let me know when will this come out?
What is it? So I think in 2 weeks.
Yes.
Next Wednesday.
Yeah.
How do you guys do it? You guys release the whole podcast, or do you guys release like snippets of it, or how do you guys deploy it?
So at the start, do you want to go then?
Oh, you can go first.
Because I'm kind of the head of content creation, so it's kind of my thing. So for now, what we decided, because people do like the an hour long conversation, they do like that in podcast. So we do release it on YouTube, so they can see our faces. Hello, and they will also release on Spotify, all the other podcast parts. And it's just basically like 1 hour long. And then after, maybe in a week later, if you want to have this quick run through, we'll have like a 2 or 3 minute sort of a highlights reel of like some of the more interesting questions, some of the more maybe something to do with like, we talked a lot about recruitment. Let's hear what we have to say. So that's kind of what we're going for. So if you don't have the hour or 2 hours to listen to it, you can have the highlight reel as well.
Sweet. All right. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Sebastian.
So like we plan to emphasize the part of like for students as well, because we're building the platform and all of that. We have two sites, restaurants and applicants. And on the applicant sites, we want to give them the best feedback directly from an owner. Yeah. So they know what to answer, because you always have the questions like, how can I stand up and over other candidates? So that's what we're trying to emphasize. If there's anything in particular you want us to emphasize on a highlight reel, you can tell us.
No, just you take it. Once I get the podcast, what I'll do is I'm actually in the middle of relaunching my personal brand. I went quiet throughout the pandemic because I needed to focus on Brasa, and quite frankly, I wasn't motivated to create content, so I needed some time off. But now I'm ready to deploy more content. So what I'll do with the podcast is I'll take it and then I'll probably cut it into sound bites. I'll have somebody on my side cut it into sound bites, and that way I'll start like releasing it and so forth. So let me know when it's ready, and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you for coming. I
Thank you
really
for
All
appreciate
right.
it.
Take care. Have a great weekend, guys.
Take care.
Thank
Yeah,
you
you
for
too.
inviting me. Bye.
Bye.
I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast with Michel Falcon and can have a bigger appreciation about how he views the industry and wants to change it. If you're interested in his business model or interested to learn more about him, check out the links below.
Here at Matchii, we're dedicated to helping small to medium-sized restaurants grow. Hoping that by engaging with different restaurant owners, it will give you a better insight into the industry and potentially help you learn a thing or two.
Make sure to follow us on YouTube, Spotify, and our various social media in our description down below.
So thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed the Matchii Experience.